Hello, everybody. Welcome to Coffee Time with Byron. I am your host, Byron. This is episode number 107. Got a shout out to my sponsors and how I do the promotion with Podcast One. I'm in partnership with them. Also, my sponsor is betonline.net. We got a lot of betting going on right now between NHL games. College football is strong. They just had their championship games. You got NBA going on. Uh, MMA, who I got an MMA fighter on right now. They're going strong. You can bet on the fights. Good luck. I personally don't do it because I know I would lose. But hey, if you're willing to give up money, that's on you. Go ahead, but it's a good website. I've seen it. So kudos to betonline.net. Use the promo code podcast1 and get 50% off. And bam, boolah, you got bet online and you can bet on your games as much as you want. But on to the interview. We got current MMA Nadine. Man, I hope I'm saying this correctly. Last name. Correct me if I'm wrong or not. Um, Mandiau, right?
Mandiau.
Say that again.
Mandiau.
Okay, Mandiau. Okay,
Yeah,
okay,
there you go. Yeah. I
got
usually
it.
like try to because it's the
So,
same way at the any of the fights that I've been in. The announcers are like, "How do I?" And I'm like phonetically, I'm like Mon and then D and then O. Like I like spell it out that way. So I always try to make it easier for people. But even in Belgium, it gets mispronounced. So I've been used to it.
I believe it. I believe it. So let's hop right to it. I know this is far from MMA, but your country, Belgium, we're in the middle of the World Cup. My country just lost today. I knew it was going. Kudos. I'm taking it as a step up. I mean, we're better. I guess you can say we're not really into soccer. U.S. is that much, but we did pretty good, I'd say. Now, you guys kind of were favorites. Your country was Belgium, and so was Germany in that. What do you make of that? Like the some upsets. Like there's been some quite a bit of upsets in the World Cup.
I'm actually going to be very honest with you. I haven't been following it as much. We've been so busy with moving, with just getting everything ready here. We've been busy with the gym and just like for me to try to get back to training that I'm just like right now in our new place, we don't have a TV or anything.
Oh,
So
true.
I hear people talk about it. And actually I had that conversation with one of the parents of the kids that I teach today, like just kind of about soccer and how the US is now starting to come up, like you said, like they're not doing bad because money is finally starting to flow towards it, right? People are actually
Mhm.
starting to invest in it, and that's gonna the resources are a big thing, right?
Yep.
But for Belgium, I'm excited. Like I know, I think it was two World Cups ago. Like we beat USA, so that was a very fun time at the bar for me.
Yeah, you guys
uh,
did. Yep. But then you guys got eliminated this year. It's like, dang, that is a huge upset. You guys
I,
didn't even make it past the first round.
oh my gosh, it's
Yeah. You or Germany, and Germany has a pretty good team.
yeah. Yeah, because what
So
is it? It's Brazil now, Argentina, I think. Is
yeah,
that correct?
Brazil, Argentina. You got 4 teams from Asia in it, which is a shocker. I know South Korea is one for sure. Japan's the other. I don't know about the other two.
So,
Netherlands,
question:
yeah. What's up?
can you go to Bet Online and bet on the World Cup?
Yeah,
All right, that's good to know.
yeah. You can do that. You can bet on anything there. They have it.
All
Just
right,
use the promo
awesome.
code. Just use the promo code podcast one. Get
All
50%
right,
off.
I got you.
So tell me a little bit about your life story from growing up in Belgium. How'd you get your nickname? Too much. Tell us a little bit about your backstory.
So born and raised in Belgium in a small town, Peer. I moved around a lot as a kid because of my dad's work and just my parents in general. But I was young, dumb, and in love at 17. Met a guy,
Mhm.
wanted to pursue that. Moved to his country with him. Didn't work out. I was way too young. I had a lot of things that I just still need to work on as a person. And but I'd already started college, and I was also too stubborn to go back home with my tail between my legs. So I was like, you know what? I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna keep going. And it's the same thing that whenever I had to go to the embassy, I was like, hey, I'm paying taxes. I'm going to college. I'm trying to do everything to be a good citizen. I would like to get my citizenship. And
Mhm.
they told me that I would be able on the 5-year mark to come and get it on my own. So I was like, all right, we'll do that. And so I became a citizen in 2015, I believe.
Nice. So
Yeah.
how'd you get your now get into your MMA life? How'd you get the nickname Too Much? Who gave it
That
to you?
that was actually my very first MMA coach here in San Diego, Tony Palafox, and it was from my very first amateur fight. I have a infatuation, I guess, with wolves, right? I that's my spirit animal,
Mhm.
and I wanted to have something like that, something loba loca or something with the wolf. And my coach just told me straight up, he's like, you don't get to pick your nickname, like you have to earn it. Like, that's
Mhm.
how it works, and I was like, "Oh, okay." And then after my first fight, we were rewatching it, going over the tape and just kinda, like, seeing, like, "Okay, what do we need to improve on? What did we do well?" And, the commentary kept saying, like, "Oh, she's just too much. Nadine is just too much for her, too much." And it was a big upset because the girl that I fought, it was my very first amateur MMA
Mhm.
fight, and she was 4-1 at the time. And so it was a big upset that I was too much for her. And so my coach was like, all right, there you go. Nadine too much Mandiau.
Now, let's talk about your division, the flyweight. Now, obviously, the women have quite a bit of different divisions than the men. You guys got um straw weight, flyweight. I don't know. Do you guys have bantamweight as well?
Yep, bantamweight is 135.
Okay. Uh, any of those other ones would you like to get into as well, or do you just want to stick to flyweight?
So that's actually the funny thing about that. As an amateur, I fought at a catch weight 120. That was my very first fight. I have fought at
Mhm.
125. I have actually also fought at 135, and then I have the Tough Enough amateur title. I have the belt still for 115. So I was able to cut down the 115 back in the day. And so my very first, when I first started my pro career, we tried to stay at 115. And then COVID, and just with my length, you'll see that if you watch some of my fights on YouTube, the comments, I always get the crazy comments about how I'm in the wrong weight class and then get called a man and all of that. So it just comes
Of
with the
course,
sport.
of course, it
Yeah.
does. Yeah.
Yeah, but so it was just kind of like, okay, maybe I need to kind of reconsider it. And then after COVID, and I had a little layoff with COVID too. Here in California, they're a little stricter on that too. Yeah, I went up a weight class.
Yeah, so tell us about that experience of the COVID year. Obviously, you were jumping around between promotions. What did they tell you around that time of that you were happening, your promotions that you were with or underground, whatever you were doing? What did they tell you with the COVID? Because obviously there had to be no fans, especially you, like you said, you were based in California where they were really, really strict.
Yeah.
So how'd that go? How'd that year turn about with COVID?
COVID for me was in general just a rough time because one, our gym just completely closed. And even when other gyms started opening up again, they stayed closed for over a year. I switched gyms. I went to other training partners, I found other training partners. I found other locations to go to. But also, when COVID first started, I caught RSV,
Mm.
which is usually for adults not that big of a deal, right? Kids, it's very dangerous.
Yep, my
But
daughter's had it quite a bit. Yep, I know.
oh
Yep.
my gosh, yeah, see? And well, because I have reactive airway disease, I was telling mom rad, um, it knocked me out. I was bedridden for more than 2 months. So that definitely made me take a step back. So that was a part of COVID, then trying to like recover from that, from changing gyms. I was trying to follow my head coach at the time, wherever he was going. And yeah, it was definitely it definitely put a stop on that journey because I had this like plan, like, oh, I'm gonna be going to be in the big leagues at this time and this is my age. I as a female, we don't have, I don't feel like we have as long as we want. Um and
Unless you're a
definitely,
big time superstar, yeah. Unless
exactly. So
Yep.
my plan was to be like, all right, let me get there, and then we can start talking about my husband and I, like maybe getting family, getting everything settled, and then I can go back to fighting. But just at the level that I'm at right now, like I don't think I could afford it. I don't think I would go back to fighting and get to a level where I want to get. So it's just kind of like I'm fighting against time on that one.
Well, yeah, you're what would you say, your early 30s? I mean, you still got like plenty of time in the sport. I mean,
I
if
do,
you
but then with kids, I mean, it's.
true, that's true if you want kids, yeah. But that just depends, like you said, if you really want to train that hard to eh, well, yeah, that'd be yeah, that'd be up to you. You'd
Yeah.
be willing to. So I totally get you on that. So now since you were down those 2 months, like you said, and it wasn't COVID related, did you feel like maybe your career was over then, or did you think you would be able to bounce back from that?
I never thought my career was over, but I did know like it was going to take some extra some extra perseverance, I guess, in that sense. Um I was just not ready to quit yet. I know, and even now, like I know I've had a few losses in my record. People when they just look at my record, they're probably wondering like, why is she still doing this? But I'm not done with it yet. I know the potential that I have, and I know how I want to keep going. So even COVID, something like the world is on a shutdown, wasn't enough for me to be like, all right, let's give it up. For me, it was just like, all right, well, what are we gonna do?
I'm I'm
How are we gonna keep this up?
I'm one that agrees with you. Record doesn't say all, and it doesn't care what promotion you're in either. I mean, record doesn't. Hey, if you still love it, you love it. Do it.
And I've been with amazing promotions in the past. Like I think as the journey of fighting, I have a lot of experience. I've gone against a lot of great martial artists, and a lot of different promotions, pretty high level promotions. So I'm very grateful for that part for sure.
So let's talk about your latest one that you're part of, Bellator. First off, I want to talk to you about that one fight you've had so far. It was a unanimous decision loss. Tell us about that fight and what were you going into thinking about that fight going in?
So actually, so as an amateur, my only loss was to Sumiko. She was the last fight I had as an amateur, and I was the 115 belt holder, and she was the 125 belt holder for Tough Enough. Um,
Mhm,
and so that one ended pretty quickly. First round with amateur TKO. If you drop, they stop the fight. Um, so for me, this was in a way like I wanted to take my power back. I feel like that it started for me like the downhill, I guess. So I was like, I want to take my power back. I want to show, how far I've gotten. And I mean, she's a great fighter, and she's also like she has the resources, right? Like she's been helped. She's like the next star in Bellator. I feel like, she's definitely heading that direction, like Alima's direction as a Hawaiian
mhm.
um, MMA fighter as well. And so, like, I just knew, like, I had to make a statement in the fight, whether I win or lost. And I do think I did that because I had people, again, YouTube or internet or whatever, people saying, I shouldn't even be doing this fight. I didn't earn it. I
Mhm.
had people saying, what was it again? Oh, I was easy money, different things like that. And so I was like, okay, like, I have to show them, like, again, the record, I know what the record says, but I've also, like, you should look at the fights that I've had, and you should look at the people that I fought. My very first pro fight was against Vanessa Demopoulos.
Yep. Yep.
She's now in the UFC, and so it's like I don't know, I've earned my dues.
So now, are you still under contract with them? Did they give you a contract, or how did that process work with Bellator?
No, it was just a one fight contract. We're still, because my coach now, Manolo Hernandez, he's in contact with them, and he was actually Elima's coach.
Mhm.
Um, and so I'm trying to get into the next LA cart in February, because I think that would give me enough time to have an actual camp, because I think the most I've had as a camp is 6 weeks, which is like a decent time, but there's people who have like 2 to 3 months as a camp, you know.
Right.
Um, I mean, I've taken fights on 3 weeks notice before. Also a reason why probably my record wasn't what it should be. But I'm hoping for that. I definitely love the promotion. I think it's a great promotion. They take really great care of their fighters. Just the people in the show, the people who were helping, it was an amazing experience. So if I could stay with them, I would be very, very happy.
Compared to your other promotions, I know you had a cup of tea with the Bellator so far, and obviously I've seen you spend most time with the LFA, which is also sister to UFC because I see it on my Fight Pass all the time. Can you compare the two, or is there any difference between the two?
I would say Bellator, and definitely now the way that they're heading, is more at the same level as the UFC, right? They're trying to get to that, like name wise, brand wise, but also like how the fighters that they have, and what they're doing for them. I think pay scale too.
Mhm.
LFA is considered more of like a feeder for the UFC. So it's a great promotion to get in. Like, it's not just a little hometown little show. It's they go all over the states. So I
Right.
think that was amazing for me to get into. It was the first time where I had like interviews and stuff like that. um but I do think Bellator is a little next step on that one. I do want to hope I don't get anybody mad about that, but I think LFA, and then you've seen LFA fighters like
Oh
they
yeah.
on their page
Oh
it says got signed with Bellator, got signed
yeah.
with the UFC. Like, to them that is the next step.
Now I gotta talk about the other two promotions too. We have yet to talk about. Have you been reached out to them? Have you been have they reached out to you at all? PFL, which I think is ESPN, and one I think used to be on TNT. I don't know what channel it is now.
No,
Uh,
I
have
haven't.
any
I
of them
haven't been. I haven't been reached out by them. That's another promotion like PFL. Like, again, they're on the come up, right? They're you see so many of the fighters and you see what their payouts are. That's what's getting everybody like really excited about it. One championship, I do know a girl that fights for them, and then actually Itsuki, she came down to our gym, and actually I got to practice with her. That was awesome. um so again, like, those are the promotions like I hope like to have those next steps with, but I don't know necessarily like how I would how they would how I'd contact them. Like, I don't know if I'm a draw for them. Like, even with Bellator, it was because it was hometown, right? Like, they're
right?
kind hometown people. They try to make it as beneficial as possible for them, which you have to do as a promotion. So um that's actually, it's funny because that's one of the reasons I'm really trying to get with Cage Warriors. I don't know if you've heard of them.
Yep, I see that on Fight Pass too. I've seen snippets of quite a bit of those too. Yeah.
So
Yep.
they're actually they originated in Europe and the UK, and as somebody from Belgium, like, I remember when I first turned pro in 2017, I emailed them and I was like, I want my
Mhm.
pro debut in the Europe, and I want my family to be able to come. And so anytime they had fights, because now they're in San Diego, the owner actually lives in San
Move.
Diego now. So
Yep.
yes, so they have shows here, and I'm always like, like, if you need any,
Yeah,
like, I'm
hit me
always
up,
like
right?
emailing them.
Yep, hit me up, right? I want to fight.
Yeah, I'm always emailing them. I'm not getting any responses yet, but like, that's one of the things that is definitely on my bucket list, is to be able to fight close to home one day.
Now you said you're with you got your own gym. Obviously, not now because you said you're still building it and you're in a process of that still. Um, before say your other gym before this one. Did you have any fighters that you think might come out of it that have been, that might be something of someday that we should be on the lookout for?
Oh, I mean, back at Victory, that's where I originally trained.
Yeah.
At that time, we had like Taylor Johnson, we had Lazy Bones Jones. We had UFC fighter. Hold on, I don't know why I'm blanking right now. Um, Shoot, I can't believe I'm blanking right now.
All good. You're good.
Sorry, but like my coach, the Tony Palafox at the time, like he's been with people like Miles Fury, right? They came and trained with him. He had some of the fighters like Taylor, because Taylor was a bigger person. Like he had Phil Davis come down to go with him. Like he was like all these names like I already got surrounded by that, like that caliber, very early on, thanks to that gym. And then now, because the gym that I work at, it's actually my husband is one of the owners. There's about three owners, but he's one of the owners, and I'm a
Mhm,
kids coach. But
mhm,
we're also kind of affiliated, or we were like, it's a long story, but we were with 10 Planets San Diego, and that's where Manolo, my head coach, is from. And so I
mhm.
get that that's where most of my MMA, like that's where I have my MMA teammates. I'll put it that way. And I mean, we've got some great talent that's come out of there. Elima is like the most well known, but now Juliana Miller. So she won the tough, and then she had her first UFC fight coming up. Like she's definitely bringing out some spotlight to the gym. Um, then Pearl is still at the gym. She's back in San Diego. So Pearl Gonzalez, she's like now trying to follow the boxing career. So it's, I don't know. We definitely already have that. I'm thinking people that we would be on the lookout for. I think a lot of the guys are still in their amateur. Uh, yeah, they're still probably in their amateur. And I think Elijah Davis, he is one of the guys who's fighting for Cage Warriors. I believe he's over 40, so it's like a really big um like it's really awesome to have somebody like to actually show like, okay, you can still do it, like this is possible. And like
Yeah.
he's putting that in, he's putting the work in, and he's there, and he's like being that example basically. And so he'd definitely be somebody to follow, because I think in his last fight for here in San Diego, so he has these like really awesome Hawaiian themed shirts, button up shirts. um Steve O was actually wearing one of them. Steve O was here, and my coach had a picture with him, and so yeah, so I think he's definitely
Is he
coming.
is he as fun? Did you get to meet Steve-O? Is he as crazy as he is on camera?
I actually wasn't there for the fights. It was already
Damn.
sold out. That's another thing. Cage Warriors like sells out like boom. I'm like, oh my god. Um, so I'm thinking also maybe that they're gonna have to end up going to like bigger venues here in San Diego. But yeah, I didn't get to.
Now, before we get into your fights, I gotta ask you, ultimately, what made you decide to want to get into MMA? Did you watch it somewhere growing up? What ultimately got you into wanting to be an MMA fighter?
Oh, so the guy that I moved for like to the States, after we broke up, I got a little chunky and decided I needed to start working out, started to lose weight, but I'd never really been somebody like, we don't we don't have sports like you have here in high school, right? Like it's a lot different. It's like outside of school. And like weightlifting, I didn't know how to lift weights, so I just knew how to run on a treadmill, and that was the most boring thing ever. So one of my friends back in Macon, Georgia was like, "Oh, why don't you come check out Rush MMA? Rush MMA here in Macon. Like we've got cardio kickboxing for the girls. Like you would love it." And I was like, "Yeah, I want to hit thing. I'll do that." And it just kind of went from there. Like I never thought I was going to be a fighter. I just started a cardio kickboxing. Then I ended up actually working at the gym as a front desk girl. And for desk person. And the owner and my coach at the time was like, hey, you need to get into jiu-jitsu. And I didn't even think I was going to like jiu-jitsu. Like, why? I'm like, that's so sweaty and personal. I didn't think I was going to like it. I'm like, I like to hit things, I was that person. And he's like, yeah, but if you're going to be a person up on the front desk, like, you need to know what you're talking about, you need to know the product. And so I started jiu-jitsu, fell in love with that, started competing more, and then being around the guys there that were fighting, I was just kind of like, okay, like, I want to be in the cage one day, one time, just one time, like, it's on my bucket list. That was actually how it was, but I needed health insurance. So I
Right.
waited till I finished college, got my big girl job, and I was like, and that's when I moved to San Diego, and I was like, I want to be a fighter. I want to do it.
There you go. Hey, what a way to get into it, right?
I know, it was just like, because I remember back in the day when I first started training at Rush and people would be like that, like, oh, have you seen this girl fighter? Like, you would be that one day. And I would just like roll my eyes at them. I'm like, what are you saying? Like, that's just crazy. And here I am now.
It's exactly a professional MMA fighter about ready to get her next fight. But by the way, I got to ask you before we get into that, when do you have a specific next fight now that you know of?
No, we're talking to a few different promotions, like the Peak Fighting in Arkansas. Well, Arkansas, Texas, they kind of have like in between.
Mhm.
Because that was a really fun organization. I really loved working with them. Their cage too is huge. That was one of the things that I was like, okay, we've got some room. We got some room to play with. But just in general too, like, that was the very first time I was on an my English is like just leaving me right now.
No
On
worries.
like a press conference. It was like the very first time I was on a press conference. I was like, "Oh my god." Like, it was a really cool experience for me. And I think, like, leading up to something like Bellator, I was like, "Okay, this is good. This is that step, like those little steps I
Yeah,
need to take now." So we were talking to them a little bit. We're trying to talk to Bellator. Cage Warriors is actually doing a reality TV show, kind of like a
tough.
tough,
Yeah,
yeah. And so I applied to that because
right.
like
All
my
right.
mom always said, a no is what you have, and a yes is what you can
Exactly.
get.
Don't hurt to. Yep.
Exactly. So yeah, we're just throwing it out there. I'm definitely not done. I'm definitely I'm getting better every day. I'm just working hard, and I'm just kind of like, okay, I can't wait to actually prove it. I can't wait to actually have that fight where I'm like, this is what I'm capable of. I'm going to show you all, and I'm going to keep it up. I'm going to keep going, and I'm going to keep rising.
So your first professional fight, as we got into it a little bit, like you said, was against now current UFC Vanessa Demiropoulos. You unfortunately lose that first fight by submission armbar. Tell us about that fight. Going into that fight, uh, what do you expect from that fight?
It was interesting because we went into the fight, and I think Vanessa is like 5'3", 5. She's very short. She's very tiny. It's straw weight, and I was like, Psh, I've got reach. I've got, I had all these ideas. And it was actually funny because my husband at the time was like, you need to practice your armbar defense. You need to work on this. You need, like, I've watched her. This is what she does. But we had this whole other game plan, and I felt like my striking, I definitely think like that's why she tried to take it to the ground as fast as possible. And I
Mhm.
think that's happened with a few of my fights. People have a hard time standing up with me. So I had that scramble, and I got in her guard, and for some reason I just remembered going, "Oh yeah, I have elbows." And like reaching forward all the way to try to get an elbow, and like immediately getting just like her breaking down my posture and getting the arm, like I presented it to her. And so it was just a very good lesson, and also going in there just like understanding like, hey, it's not a joke. Like, I can't be here and think like these girls, like I'm gonna smoke them
Right.
or anything. Like, this is not. And at first I was trying to like, I have that hard time. I'm trying to be nice to people, but then I'm like, in the cage, I can't be nice. And she was trying to be so nice to me afterwards, and I just didn't know what to do because I was like, I
Right.
don't know how to react. So, but she's an awesome person. I'm very happy for her and like the way her career has gone. So it's in a way it's like bittersweet, right? Because you're like, oh my God, like I went
Right.
against this person. Like that's where they are right now. I'm still here. But on the other hand, I'm like, no, like that's also because that's what she's been working for, and that's how like
Now, did you know to tap right away, or did the ref stop it for you to save you against yourself? Because you know how some athletes are; they like to spread through the pain to try and get through it anyhow. So, what happened there? Did the refs stop it, or did you just say, "I'm done" right away?
I did scream, but that was because it was getting to a point where I was like, okay, this is not gonna work. She was actually going more belly down. And yeah, I remember just going ah.
Well, there
So
you
that
go. See,
yeah,
there you go. So basically, a verbal tap out. Yeah, you can't go
yeah,
wrong there. Go wrong
yeah.
there.
It was a
You
verbal tap out. I
at
was
least
like,
you know
okay.
when. At least you know when to stop. Even though I'm sure you didn't want to, but you know when to stop.
I know it's that afterwards. You're like, if I could have hold on to it a little bit, maybe I would. You think that way, but it's all very different when you're in that situation and there's no
Yeah,
time to think, and it's just like this is my reaction. This is what it is. We're going with it.
right. Exactly. So you had your second fight a couple months later. You win by unanimous decision against Melissa Cervantes, which that name kind of sounds familiar. Kind
Thunder
of.
Rosa.
Yes. Now tell us about that fight. What went on in that fight?
Um, well, because this was her very first fight, I remember, if I remember correctly, like we only did 3-minute rounds instead of 5-minute rounds, because there was definitely a few times, like I think in the second round, like I had mount, and that's when I split her open with elbows, and there was blood everywhere. And I
Mhm.
feel like had I had more time, it might have been, I might have been able to finish it. But I mean, what if, right? There's so many what ifs. No, woulda, coulda, shoulda. And so going in, I was just kind of like, oh, what? Well, is this girl like? Does this girl know anything? Like, does she? Is this going to be a worthy opponent? Because I also was very stubborn on that fact, and I was like, I don't want easy opponents. I don't want
Right.
people to just. I'm like, I'm a fighter, and that's what you do. Um, and so I definitely again got proven wrong. Like she had her jujitsu as a background. She definitely knew how to take a punch. She definitely knew how to keep working. Like, and that's the one thing too. Like wrestlers, they do go through a very rigor like rigorous like training, right? Like they have to be athletic. They have to be strong. They have to be able to endure a lot. So that was also fun, and she was super nice afterwards. I really loved her. I got to see her the next day as we were leaving, her and her son, I believe. And so yeah, it was a good experience.
There you go. Couldn't say anything better. That's what you gotta love about the sport, right? Good,
Dude,
good
and she's doing
relationship.
awesome now too. She's like, because she's won the belts and stat. She's
Mhm.
like, yeah, she's very, very
So,
amazing.
unfortunately, then you go on a four-match losing streak. You lose four in a row, unfortunately, and that's post-pandemic era. Uh, Tell us about those fights and what do you think could have went different in those fights?
Um, I think Claire was my third fight. Claire played a very smart game. Again, I think with my striking, I gave her a harder time. You can't really see it on the YouTube videos because for some reason there's a glitch in the first minute.
Mhm.
But I do, if like what I remember, right? But then again, it's always different until you see it afterwards. But
Right.
I felt good standing. And they had a great game plan to like she knew like what my weakness was. They exploited it. They kept wrestling me, they kept taking me down, pinning me. And I mean, it was a tough fight. Like I kept trying to go for things, but she wasn't letting me. She kept her hips where she needed to be. She kept her pressure. Like she played a very smart fight. And so I was like, okay, like very impressed by that too. And I mean, same thing with her. Like she's doing great things right now too. Like she was definitely a worthy opponent. Um, number 4. Who was number 4?
Let's see. I got it right here. Number
Oh,
four.
That was LFA as well.
Yeah, number 4 was Taylor Modlin.
Malden, yes. Honestly, I felt like that should have been a split. If anything, again, I made the mistake of being comfortable on my back and trying to go for submission. She had the takedowns, right? And that's where she edged me, I guess. But it wasn't like the Claire fight. It wasn't like that. It wasn't like I
So
was
in
like,
your heart, you think it should have been a split, like a draw. You should have been
not
like,
necessarily a draw, and I don't want to take away to win from her either, because like she definitely came in and did what she needed to do. But
mhm.
looking at it and like the different attacks that I was able to do as well, and my striking and just I felt like it could have gone either way in that sense. So I was
I,
surprised when it wasn't unanimous.
I feel you because those fights are I've seen. Even though I'm not an MMA or I've ever fought, but most of the fights I've seen between all of UFC, WEC when I was around Pride. Yeah, those some fights are really tough to judge. Honestly, I mean, I can't look at them. It's like, how did the judges do this?
Well, that's the thing, right? Like you're in my head, I'm thinking jujitsu, and I'm like, well, she's in my guard. I'm the one in control, but that's not MMA. MMA is like, no, she's the one on top. Like you're getting, like so it's just growing with that too, like understanding the sport better every time.
And then your next one after her, you then fought Fernanda Munez. Tell us about that one. What you
Um,
did differently in that one.
I definitely had the first round. I feel like my striking was on point for that fight. I felt so like here's the interesting thing. I didn't feel like I was. I felt like nothing was working. And then
Mhm.
I rewatched the fight after and I was like, "Oh, my striking was actually like I looked good." But I think I was just mentally already just dealing with the last two losses and going in there and just being like I got to, like having a lot of weight on my shoulders. And so I didn't feel like I was doing as good as I was. And then I think also that's one of the reasons why I did give up quicker than I should have been able to fight that, like fight the armbar. Um, it's like looking back at that fight, I'm just like, God, I should have just stick to the game plan. Just did the first round. Like we were doing a great job. I was piecing her, like I was staying on the outside, like keeping her against the cage, in and out. Like it was nice. She got a few good shots into. Like it was a good fight. But then, yeah, when we went to the ground and I gave up my arm, and I was like, God dang it.
Now, how obviously you guys have corners, and they tell you during rounds and during rounds when the crowd's going crazy, like while you guys are actually fighting in the rounds. Now, do you guys actually listen mostly to your corners, or is there like some where you think, "Oh, I got this fight that I could take it without listening to you guys"? Like, how does that work at times?
Oh no, I'm that person that's like very literal, and I think that's one of the things in my last fight, in the Bellator fight, because we'd worked about like getting her into the cage. So even when I lifted up that single, instead of just doing a trip, which I do almost weekly in practice, right? Because that's one of my favorite takedowns. I was
Yeah.
just like, do the cage, and I'm like, and then I'm just getting stuck there, not finishing the takedown. So I think in my head, I'm very like, I need to open that up a little bit, my linear thinking.
Mhm.
But this fight, it was my very first fight with Manolo as now my new head coach. So still getting used to that, still getting used to tuning into him and understanding what he's saying, right? Because they all have their different vocabulary for things, right? Like different code
Right.
almost. And so
Right.
um, that was the experience too. That was rough because I think after that fight, I was like, all right, like maybe I shouldn't be doing this. Like I can't believe I got armbar. It was just That one was a rough loss to take, but I mean, again, I was stubborn, and on Monday I was back in the gym. So
There you go. Exactly. That's what you gotta do, right? So
yep,
then, after Fernanda, you fight Jasmine, Navarrete. I hope I'm saying that correctly. Sorry if I'm butchering it. What do you think you could have done differently? Because that was also a unanimous decision. Or do you
yeah,
think you actually won that fight?
I won that fight. My coach thought I'd won that fight. The people, people that were watching
That's
my
why I
fight.
asked. You really, truly. That's why I asked. Do you think you won? That's why I asked that question. When I see
Like
unanimous decision.
with Taylor, I was just kind of like, it went back and forth, like this was a split. But I mean, with this too, like I felt like I was pressuring against the cage. I had great cage control because we had worked on my wrestling, right? We realized like, hey, people are taking you down because your striking is great. They don't want to stand up. They're going to take you to the ground. They're going to pressure you. And so
Yep.
that's one of the biggest thing that we've been working on. Angel Ramirez is my wrestling coach, and he is, I mean, such an amazing coach in the fact, like his analytics, like just like he breaks, like he will watch every one of my fight and then every one of my opponent's fight and just be like this and this and like just so like, I mean, amazing. And like, this is what's going to happen, and this is what might work, and this is what you're going to have to be aware of. And he's just very aware of, I mean, not just aware, he's very like knowledgeable. And so that was our game plan, like, all right, let's start using this wrestling. We've been working on it. And so I remember my coach being pretty upset after the fight. And then I was actually not as upset because I was like, that was a good fight. Like I showed, I came in and showed what I've been working on. I came
Yeah.
and showed my improvements. So I was happy about that. But then my coach was kind of frustrated with me on that because he's like, you shouldn't be okay with this. He was like, you shouldn't be okay with this loss. And I'm like, I mean, I'm not okay with it. It sucks.
Yeah.
Like it's a
What
loss.
can you do? I mean, yeah, you can't do nothing if you can't control what the judges think.
But it's crazy though, because even the owner came up to me afterwards, Alex, and was just like, he's like, unanimous? Like even he was saying like, what? So yeah. To me, that fight, I was like, you know what? Like I'm gonna own it up. If we need to redo it, I'll redo it.
Hey, who knows? You might actually get that fight in the future again. Who knows?
Yeah.
You never know. Things happen.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Especially talk to that owner again. Whoever if she's still in that organization. I mean, hey,
Yeah.
round
Oh
two.
yeah, that was UWC, which again was a really like, I really like the organization.
Right?
I've been I've been very lucky with the organizations I've gotten into, and like I think like it's MMA has come a long way.
It has. I can tell you that from fact from like watching in the early days of UFC when they had no idea how much of a sport that was going to grow.
Yeah.
I don't think the Gracies even knew how big it was going to be when they first started. That's who set up the first TV deal with SEG back in the day. I mean, I don't think they even knew that the sport was going to grow out to be like
Yeah.
this. Just goes to show. I mean, and that was what? Damn. I'm 31. Damn. And that was in 93 when the first show
I
was.
was about to say that was 90, 92, or 90.
93, yeah.
Okay,
It's
yeah.
like, damn. God, how much this sport is growing.
It's awesome. I mean, in another way, it's making it a lot harder for people now because back in the day, it was really like you are in this one, like you're karate, like, or
Mm-hmm.
you are, and it was really like style versus style and just to see. But nowadays, it's like, no, mixed martial artists, and you have to make sure that you know everything because just one is not gonna, it's not gonna save you in there. Like
No,
you need
it's
to be well rounded,
not. Mm-hmm.
and your training needs to be that way too, so it's definitely like you're an athlete for doing MMA, like 100%.
100%. Without doubt. Without doubt. So after that, you get your second win. You fight a little bit later on that year in August against Katie Strite. You win by unanimous. Did you feel it was unanimous that you
Yes.
won by that?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely wanted to finish that. I had the back. There was definitely some moments where I thought like the ref was going to come in, and then I need to, I need to like make sure that I tune into that and just kind of like use my killer instinct, right? But I'm just so used to like, oh, okay, like they're gonna call it, and then I'm letting off, and then I'm like, oh wait, they're not calling it, and I'm like, oh, you know, and so, but yeah, she was very tough in that sense. Like I had the had an arm choke on her at one point. Like there was definitely a few times where I'm like, okay, like she's not gonna go away just like that. So it ended up being unanimous, but it was definitely, and that's one of the reasons why this fight was so important to me. It was definitely like the commentators then first asked me how I got the name too much, but then also were afterwards like you were too much, like I gained it
Right.
back, got my name back, I earned it back. And so that was a very that was a very amazing experience. And the fact that my little sister was with me.
Well, there you go. There you
Yeah,
go.
she was she actually came to visit. It was her very first time in the US. It wasn't the best experience in the sense that I was in fight camp, so like it was very hard to take her to places and eat all the things, and and it's like she had to come with me. I'm like, I gotta go to the gym. I go to the gym in the morning for hours. I go into the gym at night. I gotta teach, and then I train afterwards. Like, and so she got to see that though. She got to see that life too. I think that inspired her a little bit. Um, and just having her there for at that win, like being able to hold her in the cage was, yeah, amazing.
So, a couple more questions before I let you go here. If you weren't doing MMA, what would you be doing with your life, would you say? If you never got into the sport of MMA?
Gosh. Okay. So I originally wanted to become a high school teacher. That's actually how I ended up meeting an American at when I was 17. That's how I got an American boyfriend, was because um in Belgium, like your senior year, you already have to do basically like a trial, not a trial. What is it called?
I,
It's basically like you have to do
I know
like
what
a
you're talking about. Yeah, I just can't think of the name. Yeah, I know
yeah,
what
yeah,
you're
yeah. And my English is so bad right now. I'm like, as soon as I
I
have to
know,
think about things, I'm like, ugh.
yeah,
But
I know
yeah,
what you're talking about though.
and so I did it at an American elementary school because I wanted to become an English high school teacher. But I wanted to practice my English. And so I went to an American elementary school because I knew I was going to have to speak English all the time. And
Mhm.
that's just kind of how I got into like the military, like in that area. They're like, oh, come to the military, like this party over here, and come meet this. And then just kind of happened like that. But that was my original plan. And then when I moved to the States, I was like, I don't want to be a teacher here. So I just went into business management. I have a college degree in business management. Um, so I thought I was going to do something with that, but I don't know. To be honest with you, I don't know. I would want to be a movie star, but I would
There
have
you
never.
go. Why not? Right there, you
Uh,
go.
I mean, if we get the pick, no.
Exactly. There you go. So I know you're busy, obviously coaching, and you're doing your own thing, fighting. But I'm sure you've kept up with the UFC somewhat,
Somewhat.
with the fights and all that. Is there any certain fight that you know of that's coming up that you're most intrigued to watch or would want to watch?
So far, so I have two Instagram accounts, and on my personal one, it's mainly like friends, and on my fighting one, like I try to follow all the promotions too, and that's how I kind of stay up to date on things. But
Mhm.
right now, it's just all the the fights that people want to see. I don't feel like anything, um, like they want, uh, like they're talking about, shoot, what's his name?
McGregor?
No, well, yeah, they talk about McGregor, but they've been talking about it for years. I don't think he's actually come. I mean, I know he's looking ripped, and I know it's like
He wants to come back again, even though he looked horrible in his last fight.
just that in general. Like, I don't like him as a person anymore because of the persona, and that might not be the person that he really is, But the persona is just I
And
don't
he knows,
I don't
yeah,
think
he
it's
knows
that.
what the, yeah, I know. He knows how to promote. Yeah, I know. That's what
Yeah,
that's what
Oh,
the
Michael Chandler. Like they're like talking about Michael Chandler
about him.
going to McGregor, right? And like those kind of fights. And then Makachev is rumored and like so many different ones. So I haven't stayed up to date with that. Like I know tonight's fight. I was pretty excited about seeing some of those.
Yeah, that's
I'm not
right. The
sure
pay-per-view
why
was tonight, wasn't it?
it was a fight night, wasn't it?
I thought it was a pay-per-view,
Was it?
282. I thought it was a
Okay.
pay-per-view.
Okay, and then it's yeah, Kevin Holland, which I think it's awesome that him and Wonder Boy are going against each other. And then Wonder Boy was gonna have Jack Black walk out with him, which was like the best thing ever. Um, I'm wondering, I don't know exactly why, but the Tracy Cortez fight got canceled with her and Amanda. Um, I was curious about that. Very excited, of course, to see Angie. I trained with her as well. So here in San Diego, we call it the Coven. So a lot of the female fighters here in San Diego, we try to get together once a week to spar. And so, I mean, going with somebody from her caliber is just, I mean, it's been amazing, just being around those kind of people. So I'm excited for her fight. Um, and then who else? Because there was actually a few women fights. I remember that. So it's just, yeah, it's crazy. Again, we're not as much into it as I should. Also with like not having a TV or just not and
Oh,
just
just wait
like
till you get one in there, though. You get to
and
see everything.
I know, but and then also like finally being home on the weekends, and it's just kind of like, do I want to go out and
So now I gotta ask you, newly free agent, Nate Diaz, where do you think he might end up? He's a newly free agent. That's exciting.
oh,
I knew that one was going to happen once they said
I
his contract was up.
I mean, he's been asking for it, so and that's another thing, like, it's so funny, like, I don't like Conor McGregor's persona, but I love Nate Diaz. I don't know, it's just it's funny, it's interesting. Um, I don't know what he's gonna do because Masvidal has his own, show now too, Icon,
Yeah, yep. I heard.
and
Yep, I heard about
yeah.
that one.
So it's
I've been
all
wanting
just
to see that.
growing. So I don't know if he would start trying to have his own promotion or if he's actually going to keep fighting. I think he's not done fighting yet, but it would
Oh
be
hell no,
interesting.
hell no. Him and his brother, no, they're both. You,
Yeah.
no, no.
But I think
They've been fighting together all their lives against each other since they're brothers. So that I
yeah.
don't see them. I don't see them ever stopping.
I think there were like again rumors, but like Scott from Bellator, and Nate, I think that there were rumors that there was kind of like, Scott was saying like we'll welcome you, like so I don't know, that could be a
That would be an
cool
interesting fight. That would be interesting. I would pick see that.
for him to go to Bellator would be interesting. Yeah, for sure.
You know, Bellator would pay him the money, unlike the UFC.
I mean, th- that's what people say, right? I can't really like attest to it. I've never been in the UFC,
No,
and I've
I get
only
what
fought
you're saying.
with Bellator once, but it's like, yeah, that does seem to go around that Bellator um, is paying a lot better. I know from Liz Carmouche, she's now the Bellator champion, and I
Yep,
trained with her for a little bit. Like she was the first one to say it. She's like, "Oh, I get treated so much better. Like I well taken care of." Like she's
I've
like,
heard.
"Yeah,
I've heard from some of the fighters. Trust me, I know. I've had quite a bit of fighters like yourself that were a part of UFC and been other promotions, and yeah, they're and some are even in part of the lawsuit against Dana White and the UFC.
oh,
So yeah, there's craziness going on over there with
it's,
the UFC.
it's interesting." But I mean, it's another. If you want to look at it positively, that's also why it's now for PFL and Bellator and for these other promotions to come into play and to have, like a fair game. Like it's not monopolized anymore in that sense. So I think that's pretty cool. I think it's definitely giving fighters, a fighting chance when it comes to their actual career.
Exactly. Yep. Exactly wherever they want to go. Yes. If because the UFC is, like you said, it's pretty hard. You can contest to that too. It's pretty hard to get into. I mean, you literally gotta put yourself out there in order just to get scouted by them.
Yeah.
and you got to have well enough coaches.
I think that for sure helps too. I think like having the coaches that have connections. I think that's everything. It's like having those connections, because it's not saying that your coach is the one that can make it happen. It's not like they can tell the promotion, hey, they're going to be on it. But promotions tend to reach out to the coaches that they know. Hey, do you have a 125 fighter? Do you have, they do that. They have that relationship, and they're like, hey, we need a fighter for this fight. Like, so that's why it's good. It's definitely good to come from a solid camp for sure.
For sure. So now I ask this question to everybody. You obviously are doing it right now because you're coaching as well. What do you tell your students to get to the level of where you're at and to go even further if they choose to like another promotion, whatever? What do you teach them to get to that point?
God. Okay. So I always look back at my teachings and I'm like, God, that was great. But I'm very, very bad at like following my own advice. I always say like, do as I say, not as I do. Um, but because I have little kids, and it's very important right now to have them kind of understand like that, martial arts, like BJJ is life, right? Like jujitsu, there is a lot of similarities of like that you can look at. Like
Mhm.
having these difficulties, getting through these difficulties. And I think um as a coach that, I've had my losses, I think that's going to make me a better coach, because not saying that a person undefeated is going to be a bad coach at all. Like look at Khabib, but it's more of the like I can coach my kids through that. I can coach my teammates through that and be like, "Hey, I've been there. I know how this is. Like keep going." I think that's also one of the reasons why I'm not willing to quit yet, because I want to be that example. I want to be that example. It's like, all right, like I've been down there. I've been on the flip side, on the horrible record, and people thinking I wasn't going to do anything, and people telling me like maybe you should just, oh god, so many people are telling me I just need to have kids already. So, like it's mostly family, but
Right,
so
right.
uh,
Understandable.
oh yeah, I have one friend that keeps asking me if I'm just gonna take up knitting finally. But but like I want to be that example of like, no, I came back from that. Like I pushed through it, and I want to show that to the kids. I want to show that to eventually like my teammates. Like, hey, like it is going to be tough, and you're gonna have to do what's uncomfortable a lot of times. And like, oh, I don't like wrestling. Yeah, I didn't like wrestling either, and I had to start wrestling. Like
Yeah.
you have to get out of your comfort zone. I think that's one of the biggest lessons. Like you have to get out of your comfort zone if you want to make something happen.
Yeah, I agree with you, and I couldn't say it any better. So I'll leave you off on this is a two-part question. You just brought up Khabib. First part of the question is, do you see him coming back? I know he says he's retired now, but do you see him coming back? And the second part of the question is, you as a fellow fighter, what do you think of these fighters that ultimately end up going to WWE, like Ronda Rousey, Brock Lesnar, and what do you think about that? Do you like that has a side gig, or what's your take as an MMA fighter going
Uh,
to that sort of field, which is fake?
So I think for Khabib, first of all, I think Khabib is definitely a man of his word. So if he says he's retired, I don't think he's coming back. Things can change, people's emotions can change, and going along with time. But I really think that he's bringing up a lot of new talent right now. Like he's found like his next role. I
Yeah,
think
because Connor wants a third fight with him, and and Khabib said, nope, I'm
yeah, no, no, and I don't think he'll come back. In regards to WWE, I know a lot of people have like they'll pick their nose up on it. Is that the right way to say it?
yeah, that's the right
Okay.
way. Yep.
Okay. Sorry. Um, and I think like look, like you can't be fighting for the rest of your life. You can't. It's not a sport that you can do. Either you stay in it, you become a coach, you become a commentator, right? You stay within that field.
Hmm.
or you find something that is going to be better in the long run. Like I think WWE considered fake. Like I think they still have to be athletes, right? I think they still have to endure a lot, but I do think it's a lot easier on the body, right? I think it's a lot easier mentally. And so, granted, good money, like that's like their next step in a career, right? So I can't be mad at that. I can be like, oh no, you should be fighting till you're 60, like, or no, you should just stay at home. Don't go for something fake, like yeah, I'm not against it at all. I think like that's just a decision that you make from that. It's like some people that are getting into acting. Some of the fighters that are getting into acting, if they have acting skills, I think they should. If they don't have acting skills,
Is that something that you would think of doing? Would you think of doing
um
that?
yeah,
Training for
I
that?
think that would be cool. I think I would want to be a femme fatale. Like that would be, yeah, I would love to do that.
Be face some of those wrestlers.
Oh, you mean wrestling? I thought you meant the
Yeah.
movie thing.
Well,
Oh,
acting too. You already said acting. You would do
yeah,
that one.
that's true. I don't know. I actually have, which is really funny. One of my teens that I had back in Rush MMA in Macon, she's now into wrestling. She's in her 20s, and she's a woman now. And she said that I inspired her to really follow her dream in that, and
There you go. There you
it's
go.
really cool to see that. I don't know if it would be me. I don't know. I think it would be cool. Like you could have that's the same thing, the same reason I think I like acting. It's like having that persona, right? But it's also like need to be comfortable with being that person. So it's like how comfortable are you within your role, I guess. So I don't know. I don't know. I will never say never.
There you go. Right. Oh, hey, never say never. I'll be looking out. I guarantee you, I'll be because well, I was a big WWE fan. I don't really watch it that much, but I'm AEW now, which is another wrestling promotion. Hey, if I see you in one of those these days, I know. Hey, I interviewed her. Yeah, I think I got to interview you again.
Isn't Thunder Rosa their champion? AEW?
What? She was.
Okay, see? That's what yeah. I saw that, yeah.
She was their champion, but because of injury, she
Ah,
had to forfeit the title.
yeah.
And she
Okay.
doesn't know when she's coming back. That's what I was going to ask you when you said Thunder Rosa. So she was an MMAer
She did an
before
MMA fight, yeah.
wrestling.
She did it for
Oh,
Combate
okay.
Americas, yeah.
Okay. And you fought her. Damn. Nice. Nice. I honestly did not know that she was. I just only know by her by the name of Thunder
No,
Rosa.
that's why you were like, "That's familiar," and I'm like, "Yeah, that's she's actually, like, really well known."
Yeah, yeah, and like because you would never know because she doesn't use her fighting skills in wrestling because she just it's wrestling, it's fake moves,
Different, yeah.
it's different. Now a lot of MMAers that do that transition, they do their MMA moves in the wrestling ring,
Yeah,
so
like
that's why
Ronda.
that's
Yeah.
how I would know the difference. But Thunder Rosa, she hardly ever does that, and she was trained by one of the greats, Dusty Rhodes' kid, Dustin Rhodes.
I think she was a wrestler before she got into MMA. I think so. I'm not sure about it, so that might be a reason. But yeah, I know she has her blue belt. I know. I mean, she's into jiu-jitsu. She's into boxing. She's into that. Um, but yeah, not sure why it's not translating. Maybe you should interview her. It's a good question to ask.
If I knew her, I mean, I tried reaching out, but that's tough. I mean, with AEW, I mean, you gotta
Uh,
find the right person to
God,
get.
yeah, you have to go through people. Okay, I'm sorry.
Why do you? Obviously, you know her personally, so hey, maybe she might be able to do it under your table since she's hurt.
I don't want to get anybody in trouble. I can't make any promises.
Well, all you can do is ask her and then let me know. That's all you can
Exactly.
do.
A
Remo-
no is what you have, and a yes is what you can get.
Exactly. Just let me know once you ask. There you go. So I will leave you off on this question and then we'll go from there and we'll end it. I do gotta ask you, do you respect what the Paul brothers are doing? Even though with their character, I know you like said the same with Conor McGregor, even though I don't know if that's how he is in real life, but his
Yeah.
character, you have problems with that. What about the Paul brothers?
Um. Again, with the character, I'm just kind of like, but I think they're trying to do a lot of good in the sport though. Like seeing what they're trying to promote, like, like advocate for and like fighting against the UFC for like some of the inequalities and I'm very impressed by that part. And also, like they they are boxers. Like people are like, they're not boxers. I'm like, they are now. They are training. They are doing all these things. They aren't just people that like walked off the couch and went into a boxing ring. Like these are people like when you see the video of Jake Paul like originally hitting mitts, you're like, oh my God, but that's how most people look when they first start, like you don't know. And
Yeah,
so right now, like going against somebody like Anderson Silva, whether people say it's, that was fake or not, like obviously he's got some skills, so I don't think you can deny that. Do I think he's like one of the greatest boxers ever, or is he going to be? I don't know.
I I'd have to kind of. I mean, I respect what they're doing, but if you want to get to somewhere and get noticed, I get all the money is there, and that's what you're going to get. But once you want to fight somebody, I mean, Anderson Silva's pretty much been the only one closest that, even though yeah he's older, Anderson Silva's the only closest one that's that can do it all. That's close
Yeah,
to what he. I mean,
I was so disappointed with
competition.
Tyron Woodley fight. I was so disappointed.
That was a joke, and so was Ben Askren, that other one.
Oh,
That
yeah, Ben Askren just yeah. I don't want to talk bad about people, but
I don't either. I don't either. But I mean,
I'm
those
amazed he was one championships champion for as long as he was. But again, that was like the wrestling, right? That was like what he was good at, and he knew how to use his game plan. So that's also a part of MMA. So, but I don't know. Then again, like we didn't really get to see much from him in the UFC. Like
no, we didn't. No, it's just I mean, I just wish he would. I mean, again, I respect him. I just wish he would fight somebody on the
no,
caliber of him.
you're
On the
definitely
caliber,
right. But he wants to, right? Doesn't he want to, or is
he
that
wants to, but if you got all this money, which he does, because both him and his brother are YouTubers. Well, that's how they got it. That's why I respect them, because they were both YouTubers and they came up through the ranks to make
yeah?
millions. I respect them for that, but none of them have really fought anybody. Like look at what I think Jake's now with WWE, so he's doing that. So he's had a couple fights there, but Logan,
No,
the
Logan is with
oh
WWE.
yeah, you're right. Yeah, Jake. Sorry.
Yeah.
Right, yeah, sorry. They
Jake
get
is Jake is the one who's fighting all the like yeah.
yeah, it get see they could be twins. That's how difficult it is to tell them
True.
apart.
True. I just know like people's like Jake Paul gets thrown a lot more in the boxing. I think that's one of the reasons.
And I respect that. He is, yeah, he's got granted, yes, he has gotten better, but Anderson Silva, like I said, is the only one closest
Yeah. No,
that
yeah.
can, I
For him
mean,
to prove his caliber, he needs to fight people at that like the level that he thinks he is or wants to be.
like fight a Tyson Fury or something who's in their prime still. Like,
Tyson Fury is way bigger than him though.
true, but if you're looking to get noted with competition, I mean,
That's true.
when you're competing against retired UFCers, what point are you trying to make? Or retired boxers? Because now the latest I hear, he wants to. I don't. This is just rumors. I don't know if it's true, but he wants to fight Tyson.
Mike Tyson?
Yeah,
Interesting. Okay. Well, we'll see where it goes. I think he's what he's doing is just more getting eyes on him, so he can whether it is accomplishing things that he wants to accomplish or if it is money, like whatever it is, but he's trying to, get the right pair of eyes on him. And I
which
think that's why, That's why he's getting talked about. That's why people are like, "Oh my god," whether you think he's great or not, like he's getting talked about. And that was that, that's probably like that was the original goal. So it's
And
just
as
kind of,
long as people pay to see the fights, which they do.
yep. Now we can just keep moving towards, what he really wants. Like it's we don't know the end game.
Well, that's the same with the former athletes, like other athletes, sports athletes doing the same thing and getting in the football player also got into MMA. Hardy,
Oh
that's
yeah.
Hardy. Then you got Nate Robinson boxing. Ocho Cinco, former wide receiver, is also getting into boxing. You got all these other athletes getting into it. Like it's like, man, if it's so easy to get into, damn, I might as well get into it. Get my nose busted open.
I mean, I'm not gonna say that it's not easy, but I do think that it's something that you can gradually get into without really understanding like how deep you are into it, right? It's like I said, like I started with a cardio kickboxing and now a professional fighter. And I didn't
Right.
start cardio kickboxing with the intent of like I'm gonna be a fighter one day. It's just something like you get entered in, like you enter in this culture, a subculture, right? And you get surrounded by it, and your friends, these people become your friends, this becomes your circle, this is where you're around, these people have goals, you're trying to, like it's just kind of grows like that. So, I mean, I can see that as an athlete that you're just kind of like, hey, I'm an athletic person. Like that's who you identify as. Like I'm an athlete. Like I'm not gonna keep playing football, or I'm not gonna keep playing, like, but I want to do something next. Like it might be that, yeah. So I don't know. I never hate on it. Sometimes I'm just kind of like, but I mean, that's everything, right? People do that with me too, probably. So
Yeah. Yeah. Well, again, I thank you for your time. We went way over what I projected,
I'm
but
not sorry.
it's all good. I didn't expect it either. I only wanted, but yeah, I'm still going to go out. But yeah, I didn't expect it either. I guess it just happens. But
Well, I'm
I
glad
I
you enjoyed it.
I hope you enjoyed it as well.
Yes, sir.
So, good luck to you. I hope you definitely get more fights. Keep it
Thank
going strong. Whether that may be wins, losses, I don't care. As long as you happy doing what you're doing, that's the main thing.
you. Yes, sir.
So, and good luck to you and your hubby. Hopefully, you get kids soon that you want. So, yeah, good luck to you. I hope you that, and definitely, I'll stay in touch with you. I'll text you. Share this if you want to
Yeah,
on
absolutely.
on your pages. I'll send you the episode as soon as we get done here. And yeah, just stay in touch with me. Let me know. You can, like I said, it don't hurt to ask. You can ask her, and then
Yep.
let me know. And if she says no, I have to go to somebody else. Then oh well, at least you tried.
Yep.
So, but it was fun. I do thank you. Thank you again. I
Thank
appreciate it.
you.
It was fun.
I appreciate you. All right.
No
You have a good
problem.
night. Drive safe.
You too. I will. You too.
Bye.
Take care. All right. Bye. Nadine Mandiau or Mandiau. Sorry, Mandiau. That's how she pronounced it. I don't want to mess it up. But that was a great conversation. Went longer than I wanted to because I got to make money. But regardless, it was a fun conversation. Thank you again to Podcast One for doing this and teaming up with me on this. And definitely to betonline.net as well. Use the promo code Podcast One. Get all your bets out. MLB soon down the line. You got NHL games going strong right now. The Lightning just won, so if you had your money on the Lightning, you would win money. UFC is today, as we just talked about. I think it was a fight night. I don't know, pay-per-view somewhere around there. But you got all this going on, NBA, you name it. Just use the promo code podcast1 and get 50% off. And this concludes episode 107. You guys have a good night.